You're ready to go.
Okay. So, Vicki, I am so excited to be here with you. We met almost 30 years ago, and you were already a young leader and mentoring me. And so now we're sitting here, and you're president of MATC.
I know, it's so exciting to have known you for so many years and just to see how our relationship has grown and expanded and where you are today and where I am and how our paths crossed and that we get to work together again. It's really rewarding. It's really great.
It's a privilege. I stopped outside and told John my story about, being the first evening advisor and how you were innovating way back then.
All right.
And one of the most exciting things about this place is people come in just off the street, off from their jobs, or they're unemployed. They just come in and they show up and they say, help me. And back then I remember I just got to help people make decisions about how to make their lives better.
We see so many first-generation students here. We see so many folks who have such complex lives, as you know, because you were the advisor and you talked to them. Maybe they've never been successful before in education, but now they've got families to support. They're older, they're more mature. They think about their younger days and how they really wasted those years. How they didn't maybe finish school, or they did, but they barely got through, and now they're trying to make a better life for themselves and their families. And so they come to us with hope, and that's the thing that I think we really provide for them. And you were so instrumental in being one of the first advisors on that campus, because we weren't sure exactly what that role was going to be. But you did such a great job of helping those students. You did. You did. To helping those students to realize I can have a different life. I can rewrite the narrative of my life if I go to school and if I'm successful. And you shared with them what they needed to do. You assessed their current abilities in terms of math and English. You got them in the right courses. And that's the work that we do here. That's what makes such a difference and why I am so committed, why I've been here 30 years. I'm a first generation student myself. So I understand how hard it is to come to school and not understand financial aid, what that means, how to complete the FAFSA form, how difficult it is just to understand the language of education. You're going to test me, you're going to assess me, and is that going to say I'm not good enough, that I can't start? Am I going to get into the wrong courses? Is my professor or my teacher going to tell me I'm in the wrong place? And I think the things we found out over the years is we need to tell our students, we need to be so much more intentional of this is the place for you. We're an open access institution. We have the right kinds of teachers, right kinds of advisors, the right kinds of support tutoring that you may need, but we've got the services that will make that difference. And we've proven it. Every year at graduation, when we have thousands of folks graduating, they tell us, now I'm on to a better life, whether it's transferring to a four-year institution, whether it's going into the world of work the first time, or whether it's getting a promotion, or whether it's just enhancing their job skills in their current job that they currently have. So it's such a great institution, and I just love the things that we do here and the lives that we do impact and change, the difference we make.
Yeah. And a lot of the students are working adults, and many of them have bachelor's degrees, and they're coming back to upgrade their skills, right?
Right, yeah, like 25%, like 3,500 students, right? Have already completed, and they're coming back, and they're saying, I just maybe didn't get the right skill set, but I'm trying to get those courses or those certificates or the workplace learning that I need to really be able to find the kind of job that I need. And I didn't get it with my four-year degree, or maybe I did, but I need some additional training. We really believe in lifelong learning and how important that is. But most of our students are part-time and adults. Our average age is 30 years old, as you know, and 90% are part-time. That means they're working, and especially now with the economy doing so well and so many employers desperately seeking the folks that we're training, because most of the jobs will be middle skill jobs, so they're saying you are the providers of that training and where are the students. We're saying they're working, so we need to entice them to come back, and that's why we started our Adult Promise program, to try to bring in more and more adults who are working and say, if you qualify and you meet all these criteria and you can't afford to pay for your education, then we're going to provide it tuition free. And it's just a way to get them to say, okay, if that's the thing I need to do to really push me over the hump to change my complex life, which is what they had before, right? But then this is why advising is so important, to say, how can we make sure you can do education, the 6 credits you're taking or the 3 credits you're taking, still have your family, and still work at the same time. So we're trying to help them to do all of those things, but make sure they don't go into debt any further.
That's amazing. So
Yeah.
Adult Promise.
Yeah.
And is that something that you innovated here, or is it something that you picked
No,
up?
actually, it's a national model. It started in Tennessee by their governor, and it started to really take off in other states. But I knew that in this state, we were not going to have our governor that was going to take lottery dollars to support this, and that's how Tennessee paid for it, through lottery dollars, because those were already being put to education and other uses. But I said, why can't we do it?
Wow.
And so we started it for direct from high school students. Each year we get about 3,000 applications. That's not how many we end up with, but at least we show the interest. Our first year of the Adult Promise, we had over 3,000 applications of interest. I'm hoping that most of those folks will decide to come. Right now, it looks like about 70% of those were former MATC students.
Oh,
So that's really great. So they
awesome.
feel comfortable coming back and saying, hey, I didn't get it the
that's
first time, but now I have a chance to finish it up this time. So we're really gearing up to make sure that they're successful.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I think about when I think about your leadership is innovation. What else is going on that's really exciting for you?
Well, we are also, the same time we're bringing all these students in, we also know nationally, and Milwaukee is no different, that students of color and students who go to two-year institutions tend not to graduate. Our graduation rate 3-year is about 11%. That is not acceptable. And so we all recognize that as an institution. So what we did is we joined a national cohort through the AACC, which is our National Community College Association. And they are running what they are calling guided pathways. And that is really to make sure we retain the students that we start with. So it's not asking, are the students ready to come and be educated, but we're asking ourselves, are we student ready? So that we can make sure that when they come to us, that we have those systems, processes, and procedures that will really ensure that that student can be successful. We know by looking at other models across the country that others have done it, so we know it's possible. And so we have taken this on as an institution. We've been through our first year now. We're starting our second year. We're going to be implementing some major changes. And they're all student-focused and student-centered, based on data. And we're all going to be working together to change what we need to change to make sure that we're helping our students the best way that we can, because 11% is not acceptable.
Right,
We can do so much better.
Wow.
I mean, the American dream literally is dead in Milwaukee for so many of our folks. We want to change that. We want to turn that around. We want that to be the old news, yesterday's headlines.
Yeah,
That is, if they go forward, that you come here and we've got the systems and processes and we've got the people in place that will care about you and make sure that you are successful. You're going to have to help on your side, but we're going to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to make sure that that occurs.
Wow.
So we're pretty excited about that. Yeah, we're
Your
very excited.
passion is amazing. So let's shift gears. Where does that passion come from? Tell me a little bit about.
Well, that comes, I think, partly from how I grew up. I grew up in a project in Milwaukee. Most people don't know that. And then my parents, my father was a veteran, and that's how we ended up in the projects at West Lawn. And then we moved to right by John Marshall High School, right off of Fond du Lac. And I was there until about 12 years old, and then my parents moved again out to the suburbs, out to Brookfield. And knowing what I felt, moving from those different communities, very different, just amazing, the cultural differences and how I felt so lost moving from one to the other. So I can just imagine what our students are going through when they have to change cultures very quickly, even from where they're at their community and high school to college. And so I wanted to be a counselor, and I always wanted to help people, and I think that that's part of my journey to really making sure that I am leading in a way that is very helpful and servant leader guided, because I feel such a strong passion to helping others, and I think that this institution in particular can do that. So I was first generation. My parents never went to college. I grew up very poor, and then we moved to Brookville, which was very wealthy and still is. So I felt like I didn't fit in, but I had some really good mentors along the way. And so mentoring became and is really important to me, that I help others as well. So I had people not inside my family, but others who said, you should go to college. And I ended up going to college and was interested in counseling and guidance, and I ended up getting a master's degree in that. Wanted to then look at change, not with just the individual, but also then with organizations. And so I went back and got my master's in business from Cardinal Stritch. And then, of course, I wasn't done. So I wanted to go back and finish up my doctorate. And the reason I wanted to do that was because I just felt like I wanted to be in a leadership position to make the greatest change possible for the most people possible. And so that's why I thought I must be on this path. But I did it for that reason, but I gained so much more along the way because I have a passion for learning as well. I love to learn. My thing was, as a young leader, as you mentioned, was to really figure out and to learn. So if I have this situation at work, what is it I need to do to make it better? And so I'd read every single management book that was available, every leadership book that was available, every course I could take on leadership and management. And I would put it in the context of counseling and guidance, but management too.
Cool.
So that I could try to pull them all together and to realize the best possible way that I, as a leader, could move forward. I know there's a lot of different leadership styles, but as I said before, the one that really resonates with me and my journey along here has been the servant leadership. I really want to serve others.
Yeah, well, that's very evident. That's very cool.
Oh, well, thanks.
So what are you say you're a lifelong learner, you love to learn.
Yes.
I know you're busy being president,
Yes.
but
Yes.
are there any books or blogs or anything you would recommend or that you've been reading that's inspired
Well,
you?
actually, you shared one that I think reaffirmed for me so much. Brene Brown, Braving the Wilderness.
Okay.
I think that being a leader, it takes a lot of courage and it's very lonely.
Yep.
And it's not a popularity contest. It's truly believing in what you think and what you value and how you behave. It's all of those things combined. And I think in there she talked about that a lot, about that aloneness and about really coming to terms with what your values are and then standing up for those. And not in a way that hurts others.
Right.
And really listening to others and drawing them in and making sure that you can reach this place mutually where you have a mutual understanding. Because I think that's what's so important. We see so much divisiveness right now and just so much tribalism.
Right.
That I think what was so great about that is really appreciating and understanding each other. And that's what counseling is about too, about listening skills and really understanding, having empathy for the other person because you understand their story. You take the time to show respect for another person by listening to them and hearing their story, right? So that you can understand it better. But then you have to create this space where they get to hear your story as well. And not everyone's willing to do that. I think she talked about that a lot, which I thought was really important. Is like sometimes you don't get that chance to be heard as well.
Right.
But it doesn't stop you from having the strength and the courage to believe in what you believe in and to be able to articulate it and stand for it and even have people come back and say we don't agree with that, we don't like that, but to say it's okay and to be able to live with that. And I think that's a big part of leadership, right?
Yeah.
Vulnerability is one of her key themes that she always talks about, and I think for a leader, the courage and the vulnerability to really share who you are as a person, because that's who people lead, right? Now, they'll lead some of the ideas or whatever, but it's also the person. They got to have trust in that individual, and I think trust is really the basis of the work we've been doing together with our leaders. It's really that basis for developing all those relationships, which leads to better conversations, which leads to the better culture, and that's what we're working on.
Yeah. So in terms of vulnerability, I know that you've told me in the past, and you've told your team members that your natural preference is not to be out here speaking.
Correct.
You're more of an introvert.
I am.
And yet you're here and you're doing this, you're opening up and you're being vulnerable.
Right.
How many students have heard your story?
Well, probably very few because I'm an introvert and I like listening to other stories, right? Because that's part of the style, right? And I forget to articulate my own story.
Okay.
And because I am interested in other people, right?
Yeah.
And that's all the whole council is like, tell me your story. Okay, tell me your story. I want to hear your story, right?
Right.
But then I forget to tell mine as well. And but I do tell the people who report to me because I have other introverts. I have other people in the organization who are introverts, and they know I'm one.
Mhm.
And they've seen me through the years, and they're like, how'd you do it? Because public speaking and getting up in front of groups is a very difficult thing. And I have to say, it's something that if I could get out of it every day, I would try to figure a way. But I don't try to figure out a way because, because yeah, it's like, why? Because there's a piece of me that's like, could somebody else maybe? I'm like, no, because my role is to lead this organization. And that's, I think, the important piece is I overcome my own personal
Right.
feelings about that to really move to the greater good of what's good for this institution. And so what's good for this institution is to be able to articulate our direction, our vision, what we value, and what our goals are,
Mhm.
right? And how we're going to measure those and how we're going to be held accountable for those.
But to inspire yourself, you get up every day
Have
and you
to.
are focused on,
Have to.
I'm doing this because I believe in transforming lives.
Absolutely. Thank you
Yeah.
for saying that. That's absolutely what it is. If I didn't care about our students so much, if I didn't believe in this institution, the difference that it's going to make for all the students who are here, you and I have seen the transformation with our students, to see them in the beginning when we talk to them and to see them at graduation, or to see them get their first job or get a new job, or that their kids are there and just celebrating, or their spouse or their loved ones are so happy for them. That's what really makes the difference, right? That's what inspires me. If I'm having a bad day, I walk out in the hall and I look at our students and go, think you're having a bad day? Look at what they've had to overcome
Right.
just to come to school today.
They're
And-
working, they have families, they had to get here.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. Sometimes 3 bus rides,
Oh.
dropping their sick children
Right.
off, trying to find a place for their children, right? I mean, it's just really a very overwhelming thing. Or their car breaks down, or
Right.
maybe they're going to be evicted. Those are the kinds of things. Or if they don't have enough food to eat for the day. They're here hungry. We have no idea what they go through just to get to a better life. And I think my role is like I can overcome my personal feelings about what's comfortable, what isn't. I think the discomfort is what's really important for growth anyway, right? You and I know that and believe that. You have to be able to do new things differently to have that real growth.
Right.
And that's what they're going through. That resilience, that persistence is
Right.
the same thing that we need from ourselves and from others. But I've told the people who feel a little uncomfortable with speaking, it's like, do you have something to say? Do you have something important that you want to share? It's just with more people. That's all it is. We like the one-on-one, but do it with more people. And that's what I think can help mentor others. Others can then feel like, oh my God, she did it, I can do it too. I think just me becoming president. They've never hired someone who's worked their way up through the organization.
Oh, wow.
And then a woman, I'm only the second woman they've hired. So that gives hope to the folks who work here that, hey, I knew you when. I knew you when you were just in this role, right? And to see me work all the way through. And the thing that really is clear to me is I didn't pay attention to all the noise around here. I really, like you said, I was laser focused in on what was the most important thing. And the most important thing is the success of our students. That really is the most important thing. We have such a wonderful mission, and it's such a difference that we can really make in the lives of the folks who live here, but our whole community will benefit
Yep.
when we have more people who are contributing, and contributing in ways that give them hope and gives them, they're the role models then, right, for their kids and for their families, because some of these folks are,
Right.
they are the first generation as well.
Right.
And so,
Many of them.
oh yeah, so I can't worry about me personally, and just always being the servant leader. Sometimes you got to step up and put your stake in the ground and go, this is the direction we're going to go, because people need to see that too. They need to be clear on what direction we're going.
Right. Right. Cool. So if you were talking to a student and sharing your story, can you tell a more specific moment where things changed for you? Where someone said, hey, I think you can do this? Like, have you thought about going to school? Like, how did you make that leap into being first generation and actually going to college.
Yeah, this story I do tell, and I've told this publicly. But what happened was I was working in high school at a work-study program, and I thought I was going to be a secretary because that's what my mother did. That's all I knew. And as they saw me typing and filing, they were like, oh, no, this is not going to work out. This is not suited for you. But they could see that I had some level of intelligence, which is helpful. And they had all gone to UW La Crosse because they were in Park and Rec. That's where I worked. I walked right across from Brookfield Central right over to Park and Rec. And what they did is they took a day off of work, which the assistant director, the guy who was doing his work study there from the university from La Crosse, they had another intern that was working there. They all took the day off and they drove me up to La Crosse. They helped me fill out the application, the financial aid form. They had me sit in on some classes with professors. They had me visit the dormitories. They walked me everywhere, and they said, you are coming to La Crosse. We're going to make sure that you get enrolled in it. And I was just like, I don't know. And then I told my parents, and they were just like, what? You're going to college? I don't understand that. And then at the same time, as I went through all of this, my high school guidance counselor called me in. She said, I've been looking at your grades. I've been looking at your ECT score. I think you should go to college.
Yeah.
And between the two, I'm like, this is absolutely the right road for me.
I'm so happy.
And that's how I ended up. And that's why I know that even someone who lived in Brookfield, who it was expected that everybody went to college.
Right.
I was on the secretarial track,
Right.
which meant I was not going to be going to college. Even there were people who believed in me and helped me. And help me in a way that probably most people don't realize that our students need to be helped.
Right.
Or that folks in the community who've never gone to college or have had a bad experience, they don't know really what the next steps are. And you really need people that care about you to help support you and say you can do it. And we're
Right.
going to help you to do
Right.
it, even though you don't understand
Even
all
if
of
there's
that.
one person. Even if there's
Exactly.
one person.
Who believes in
And
you. It just takes one to
that's
believe
what
in you.
drives me, because my story is so similar to yours. Growing up, my dad was a paper mill worker. My mom stayed home raising 7 kids. They didn't envision any of us going to college. They thought happiness was getting married and having kids and building a life, which is great. But I loved learning. We shared learning. I loved learning. And lucky for me, in my little tiny Catholic school where there were only 24 kids in my class for the 8 years, I was with the same 23 kids. When my parents went to the conferences, the teachers were planting seeds and saying to them, Teresa's college material. Well, they didn't know what that meant.
Right.
So when I was a junior in high school, I told an uncle, I really want to go to college, but I don't know how I'm going to pay for it. And he said, if you want to go, you'll find a way. And that was it. The one person, that's all I needed to hear. And I found a way. I worked hard all the way through.
I know.
And,
It's so true, isn't it?
Changed my life.
Someone's got to help
Changed my
us.
life.
Yeah, it really does. And that's why I know you enjoy helping others,
That's
but
what I
that you want to
love.
give back,
That's
right?
why I love MATC and the mission. It's
Yeah.
just to know, one step, another step, students' lives change.
Right.
And I used to tell them that. I'd show them the charts that we had, over a lifetime, here's how much money you'll make without a high school diploma, here's how much you'll make with, and then an associate and a bachelor's, and, you can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Someone who will be there for them, right?
Yeah.
They need to.
yeah.
Excellent.
So, a couple more questions. I think we've covered that. Okay. How are you doing?
We're good. I just wanted to double check, triple check.
Okay.
All right.
So, I'm sure you've read about fail fast, make sure you learn.
Yeah.
I mean, really, that's how we learn, right?
Yeah.
Can you look back at a time where you may have looked at something that could have been a failure, but then it turned into something positive for you?
Yeah, I think that when I was in one of my leadership roles at the Oak Creek campus, we were trying to put together what is now called the ECAM building, the Energy Conservation Advanced Manufacturing Center.
Wow.
And it was based on legislation we had 1 year to get this thing done, and it was going to sunset, and everybody had passed on it at MATC. And in my role, I was like, oh, we'll do something. And they're like, oh no. Basically, oh no. She's not really the person we wanted to step up. But I had a plan. I knew what we wanted to do. And we got together the team, and I actually got the president to agree that I could do it, which had to at that point go up like 3-4 levels.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I don't even know who that is, but sure, let's see what can happen. And so we brought people together, and it failed like right out of the gate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it literally was like, oh my gosh, because we had brought somebody on who was like working at cross purposes with us.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, we were really floundering, not knowing which direction to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought, oh my gosh, I put my reputation on the line.
Mm-hmm.
Now the president knows who I am. And I'm going to fail like in the first 2 months. I cannot believe it. And I'll tell you, this has served me very well.
Okay.
Throughout my whole career. When I get to these points where I see it's not going to work, I get quiet. And I go back into my introvert self, and I really start reflecting, I start reading, and I start talking to people. And so I kind of put the problem to the side a little bit, and then I reflect. I do a lot of reflection and a lot of one-on-ones with people.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, I discovered that I could bring in a consultant and who actually had done this before.
Ah.
I actually did the first one, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to bring this person in.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing I did was I had to find somebody who I knew would be on my team.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found one of the executive vice presidents. She said, I'll back you up on this, but you got to make sure this works out, because I'm putting my reputation on you as well. And I said, I know with this consultant, and if I can get this other person off the team, that this other person will lead us, this consultant will lead us through what all the steps are, and we'll lay out the plan. And that's exactly what happened. So we got the consultant in, we got this other person off the team who was dragging us down, and everything we do would be undo. This consultant put a whole plan together, like here's all the steps that you're going to go through to get this done. And I have to say that that was the reason, bringing all the team together. And the team wasn't used to working so hard and so long on something. And so we'd have meetings where I'd be like, oh, by the way, no one's leaving until we get this done today. And I'd be like, no, really, I mean, no one's leaving. And we got things done on time. But they got to learn. It's like, oh boy, I cleared my calendar because I know I'm not going to leave till we get this done on time. I said, we're not leaving until we get this done on time because we're going to be successful. And to this day, we're now talking about expanding that eCamp Center because it's been so successful. Wow. We knew we didn't build it big enough, but at that time we knew that let's build what we can and put in there what we can, but we also know in the future that we're going to have to expand it, and we're at that point now. We're actually going to do an expansion of eCamp. Yeah. But I think that's something that for me, I don't believe that it'll fail. I just feel like we haven't found the right path yet to success. And we'll find that way. We just have to think through it differently, and we have to bring in maybe different people to help with the problem. That's what it's going to take, but that persistence too. Like every day, every day, that laser focus, that's what we're going to work on.
Right. Wow. So how do you keep that energy up? You know, I know how hard it is to get on your calendar sometimes. You're back to back into the evenings. Any habits or rituals, or how do you keep your resilience up?
I think I wake up happy every day to come to work.
Oh,
Every single day I'm like, I can make a difference today, and I really believe that.
that's so good.
And I come here and I think about our students, and I think about our community every single day before I start my job. And so my day goes fast. I'm full of energy all day. I'm full of passion every day because I always remember why I'm here and what my purpose is for being here. And as you know, as I'm aging, I'm starting to realize that as I get older too, time is really important. and that I don't have as much time to do the kinds of things I really want to do. I've already been here 30 years. So I know that I don't have a lot of time to make all the changes I really want to make, but I want to make sure that at least when I leave here and I look back at my legacy, that I can say I at least started some things and I finished some other things, but I made it a better place than when I first started.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for your time today.
Thanks, Therese. Really
It's
appreciate
been
it.
amazing.
And what an honor. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks. Okay.
Okay, the quick photo.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was a great ending.
I know.
The whole thing was great, but that ending, I was like, oh, this is gonna kill it. This is gonna kill it. Oh my goodness, you crushed it.
It's so
That's why it was so
Therese
good.
knows. This is what I really believe.
So